From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Hey, it's Dina. We're back next week with new stories, but today we're visiting one that's taken on new relevance. As U.S. states push for new age verification laws, we look to Australia, where lawmakers tried to do something bold, ban kids under 16 from social media. What happened next says a lot about privacy, parenting, and the fine print of enforcement. Take a listen. Were you really a bouncer at Limelight in New York?
Yeah, I was. It was about 1990. I used to date a tall girl there as well. She had bleached white hair. I had bleached white hair as well.
So it's a natural progression from being a bouncer at Limelight to becoming an expert on privacy?
Yeah.
I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop, a longer listen to one of our favorite interviews of the week. On Tuesday, we told you about an Australian surveillance law that requires tech companies to build back doors for law enforcement just for the asking. The law, known as TOLA, is now considered one of the strictest surveillance laws in the world, which may be why when the Parliament in Australia imposed a sweeping ban on social media for kids under 16 back in late 2024, no one was that surprised. Privacy advocate John Payne says no one seems sure how it will actually work.
The government has this view that by putting a ban on social media, that when this bill becomes law in 1 year's time, kids will come flooding back onto the sporting fields around the country to play football and play cricket and golf and basketball. And it's like, no, it's not going to happen.
Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. For 35 years, the EFF has been fighting to make sure that when you go online, your rights go with you. And they have a podcast. It's called How to Fix the Internet. And it's all about getting things right in our online world. Season 6 kicked off May 7th with an episode exploring the concept of digital autonomy. The fight for digital rights is bigger and more urgent than ever. EFF is at the forefront of that battle. And because it's member-supported, the more members they have, the more they can fight for our digital rights in state houses, in courthouses, and everywhere. Visit EFF.org/podcast to listen to How to Fix the Internet and join EFF. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop. For years now, there's been growing concern about what social media might do to kids' brains and their mental health. The genesis of this movement began with a writer named Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, and he basically laid out every parent's worst nightmare about tech and their kids.
A flip phone wasn't engineered to hold your attention forever, but a smartphone is.
Jonathan Haidt talking at Intelligence Squared in the UK.
And so kids they're watching videos, the boys are watching porn, they're communicating with their parents during class. Why are we doing this?
Just a quick note here. Jonathan Haidt is a controversial figure. His critics say he's played on parents' fears. The research behind, say, the effect of smartphones on kids isn't as conclusive as Haidt makes it sound. But most parents can see for themselves that social media has an unsettling ability to rock their kids' worlds. All of which could explain why Australia's Prime Minister announced the new social media ban himself.
Social media is doing social harm to our young Australians, and I am calling time on it. I want Australian parents to know that we have your back.
It turns out one of the officials in charge of rolling out the Aussie ban is actually an American, Julie Inman Grant.
If people think we're just going to flip a switch and they're under 16s, those accounts are going to disappear. That probably won't be the reality. So we have a lot to figure out. We're not strangers.
This is Grant speaking at a Council on Foreign Relations panel in D.C. She's been Australia's e-safety commissioner since 2017, and she's been at the forefront of tackling issues like revenge porn and online harassment, and now kids and social media. And she says this isn't just about age-gating kids. It's about a cultural shift, one that she likens to what happened in the U.S. in the 1970s and 80s, when there was this whole movement in Congress to make cars safer. This is Grant talking about it with Politico.
Think about all the life-saving technologies we take for granted that are in our cars, from airbags to anti-lock brakes. So the analogy would be embed the virtual seat belts and erect the digital guardrails to prevent, the next tech wreck from happening.
Among other things, the law makes social media companies responsible for making sure kids under 16 aren't on their platforms. And if they don't follow through in doing so, it could trigger multi-million-dollar fines.
Platforms now have a social responsibility to ensure the safety of our kids is a priority for them.
Beyond that, John Payne says, there are just a slew of open questions. And his fear is that the way platforms decide to answer those questions may do more than what the law intends. So they won't just keep kids safe online, but could end up infringing on everybody's privacy, adults included. Among other things, he says, it's not even clear what platforms the ban applies to. The Prime Minister has said Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and X will be covered for sure. But beyond that, it's up to the country's communications minister to decide, which, John says, concentrates too much power in one place.
It puts the locus of power in the hands of the communications minister and one regulatory body, which is the e-safety commissioner. And they can do that by issuing regulations in the absence of parliamentary oversight and debate.
John worries that the limiting access could end up harming young people in marginalized groups or kids living in remote areas who are largely isolated without social media.
We think that it doesn't make due consideration of the human rights impact of the bill. It infringes upon children's autonomy, their agency, and even their political rights. And kids these days are expressing themselves politically younger and younger compared to previous generations.
But most of all, what worries John is something baked right into the law, that 16-year-old age limit. How do you even begin to verify how old someone is online?
Everyone is not of age until they prove themselves otherwise. So, in fact, everyone becomes a suspect.
That's when we come back.
In cybersecurity, your greatest fear isn't the threats you see, it's the critical signals lost in the noise. Every day, security teams sort through millions of potential threats. That's why Recorded Future exists, to give you precision intelligence tuned to your needs. Our advanced AI detects patterns humans might miss, while our threat intelligence experts, veterans of military and intelligence services, provide crucial context. With Recorded Future, you gain the confidence to identify critical threats and the precision to act before they become attacks. Learn why 1,900-plus customers, including 45-plus sovereign governments, trust us to detect threats faster and achieve 350%-plus ROI within a year.
Australia isn't alone in its efforts to curtail youth access to the internet. And at the start of this year, 2025, a new law in Florida went into effect that bans kids under the age of 14 from using social media. But the law now faces some constitutional challenges. The thing that they hide behind here in the United States is the First Amendment, right? So lots of these things get stopped in their tracks because we have a First Amendment. There's no First Amendment in Australia.
We do have an implied right to free political speech in our constitution and upheld by our high court, but we don't have a similar as given to the Americans under your constitution. We're probably the last liberal democracy in the world not to have an omnibus national Bill of Rights. And this is something that we really, really need. We want digital rights.
John worries that Australia's new law will end up violating those not so totally protected digital rights, because there are only a handful of ways to know whether someone is a kid online. You can, of course, ask.
Some involve simple, ticking a box, yes, I'm over the age of 18.
But how would you know if someone is being truthful? It makes me think of a meme from all the way back in the 1990s about identifying people online. There was a large dog sitting on a chair at a desk, and his paw is on the keyboard of a computer, and he's speaking to a smaller dog sitting below him. And he says, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. So, if you want to get tougher than a pinky promise, I'm neither a dog nor a child, you have to start looking at the kinds of options that worry John Payne. Things like biometrics, the automated recognition of individuals, which looks, among other things, at facial features and estimates age based on that. That means, of course, handing off personal biometric data. That's already happening, by the way, in a lot of airport security checks. Another option platforms have looked at is tracking behavioral signals.
Looking at your browser history, for example, and estimating the age from your viewing habits.
So lots of Scooby-Doo and Taylor Swift searches could get you banned, and that would be bad news for bronies.
I am a brony.
And I'm proud to be a brony.
That's right, the adult fan club, mostly men, who love the cartoon My Little Pony. Another option Julie Inman Grant, the e-safety commissioner, suggests is a technology that uses AI to look at hand movements, like, say, holding up a peace sign and then a fist to the camera. And believe it or not, AI can use that to figure out your age. It claims to have a 99% success rate, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Of course, the government already does have a way to confirm age in real life. Government IDs, like driver's license. People could just be required to upload those.
And of course, the more intrusive is providing identity documents that are issued by the state to validate with surety that you're of age. So each of those methods involve increasing intervention.
The problem, John says, is that none of these options can accurately verify someone's age online in a way that respects people's right to privacy and keeps their data safe. Millions of people uploading IDs, credit cards, and biometrics into a database puts a lot of that very sensitive information at risk of being stolen. And it forces people to kind of opt in to being surveilled.
And that could lead to even more sophisticated technologies being required to enforce this ban, and which only adversely affects the privacy of all internet users, not just under 16-year-olds.
But even if you ignore all of those concerns, and the government does find a way to enforce this law while protecting privacy, John Payne thinks the law fundamentally is trying to solve for a problem it doesn't fully understand.
The government has this view that by putting a ban on social media, that when this bill becomes law in 1 year's time, kids will come flooding back onto the sporting fields around the country to play football or play cricket and golf and golf
and be nice to their
basketball.
parents.
It's like, no, it's not going to happen. If they don't subvert the technology, the checks to required to prove age by using Tor or using a VPN, they're going to go off into darker parts of the internet that, don't have this type of regulation or don't care. Or they're simply going to spend time on a different technology platform. And it could be, gaming, it could be, PlayStation, it could be anything.
I guess parents would say, that if everyone doesn't have it, it makes it easier for them to say no rather than being the exception to the rule.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And the argument's no same as a parent to, wanting the latest pair of Nikes or Chuck Taylors, or except now that these consumable items that we get are smartphones.
The law actually takes effect about a year from now, in December 2025. Time that John says he'll be using to push the government to rethink the law through the lens of human rights and privacy.
The fight isn't over yet. It's just intermission, so there'll be a lot more fighting from digital rights advocates like us to try and, get some sense and sensibility built into this legislation.
We'll keep you posted. This is Click Here's Mic Drop. From Recorded Future News, this has been Click Here's Mic Drop. It was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Guida, Zach Hirsch, Lucas Riley, and me, Dina Temple-Raston. It was edited by Karen Duffin. We'll be back on Tuesday with an all-new episode of Click Here. Have a great weekend.
This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.